So it was good timing. Come on in, Tyler. So it was good timing in terms of our schedule, but I wanted to let you know that I'm having Montserrat come in to all of my classes, so it wasn't anything in particular about you guys, and I was like, oh, this group is in desperate need of peer tutoring, so we better get somebody in here pronto. It's not that. It just happened. I sent her an email last week, and she said I can come on Tuesday. So I said, okay, great. So in terms of the schedule, today we are going to cover quantities and then section 1.4 in your book, two different sections today. And the homework on quantities is due this coming class, which is Thursday. And I also want to point out that this coming Thursday is our first quiz. Quiz number 1 happens on Thursday. The quiz will not take the whole period. We're going to review for the bulk of our hour and 15 minutes together, and then the quiz will only take the last 25 minutes or so. Officially, the quiz is written to be 15 minutes. Some of you will finish in less than 10 and get out of here. But built into the quiz is time and a half for everybody, which is how we go from 15 to a little less than 25. So we should have enough time to work through the quiz without feeling rushed, but the bulk of next class will be a review. The quiz is on all the material that's in that first box in the green homework sheet. You guys know the one I'm talking about? This one here. So there are these boxes that maybe we didn't pay attention to before. Right here at the top of the second page on the green assignment sheet is a box, and this box contains all the material that quiz number 1 is going to be on. I also want to highlight that today, like I said, we're doing quantities, but we're also going to do section 1.4. We're doing 2 sections today. But what can you tell me about 1.4 and the quiz? It won't be on it. And if we take a look at the schedule again, what can you tell me about the homework collected next time in 1.4? 1.4 is not collected next time. So this is an unusual day. We're going to cover 2 sections. The homework for 1 section is going to be due next time, and that will be on the quiz. Homework for the other section is not due until a week from today, and it's not on the quiz. Yes. That means, so I've got this grace period built in so that if people don't quite get the homework into me on exactly the day it's due, it's okay. But for people that haven't done any homework, which I don't think is anybody here, but sometimes somebody will hand me like section 1.3, you know, a month later, and I say, well, you know, what is this? So there's like a deadline for turning in the homework for all the stuff. The material on quiz 1, you got to hand all that homework to me before you take quiz 1. So that's all that means. Good question. All right, so that is that. One other thing about the schedule, you are welcome to take the quiz with any of 5 different sections of this class that's happening. So we meet Tuesday, Thursday at 9:30, but right after our class at 11, Sandy is meeting, and she's going to be having a review period just like we will, and then she'll give a different quiz, but similar. You're welcome to take it with her at 11 or at 12:30, or if you really want to change things up, you can take it with her Monday, Wednesday, Friday class. They're taking it this coming Friday. So you're welcome to go to any of those classes and take the quiz then. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 or 11. Leslie. Are you talking about for the quiz or just generally? Yeah, so you're welcome to it. If you have to miss this class, if you just have an unavoidable thing you can't get here at our time, definitely go to one of the other classes. It could be on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or it could just be later in the day on one of our days. Attendance doesn't count per se in terms of your grade. So it's not something to worry about, like, you know, does it count? But we want you to see the material sometime, whether it's with me or Sandy. And if you want to see it twice, go to me and Sandy, and you can. Yeah, so this is an opportunity then to maybe go on Friday and make sure you take it on Friday. Okay, good, good. Wednesday, tomorrow isn't our review day. No, our review day is Thursday before the quiz. So yeah, from what I hear, I'm not convinced that GCC will be open tomorrow, but I don't expect that that's going to affect us. I think the snow is going to end Wednesday evening, and I think we'll be on as scheduled on Thursday for our review and then the quiz. Other questions? Okay, one. Like there is a snow day and like they're not Yeah, if we open up at 10 o'clock on Thursday, yeah, come in here at 10. Right, so our class goes what 9:30 to 10:45. So if we're on a 2-hour delay and we open at 10, then that still gives us plenty of time to take our quiz from like 10:20 to 10:45. Yeah, that's a good question. You're welcome. Okay, and then the last thing, you got a bookmark from Montserrat about peer tutoring. I'm handing you a bookmark about the Math Studio schedule. So these are a little bit darker yellow than the other ones, so go ahead and grab one from your table. Anybody need one? Everybody has? Okay, this just tells you exactly when the Math Studio is going to be covered by a math faculty member. In particular, right after our class and right before our class, you will see that Jen is there or Caitlin is there. So lots of opportunities to get help in the Math Studio. Okay, so we begin today in the blue on page 29. So let's take a look at page 29. In fact, 29 is really just some administrative stuff. You can take a look at it later. The only thing I want to highlight is that in the yellow QEF packet, you will find a practice quiz. So this is a good thing to study from in terms of preparing for the quiz. Okay, so everybody's clear on the QEF business? There's an extra practice quiz in that yellow packet. Okay, so let's move on to the next page, and we'll get up here to the top to the objective. We're in the blue page 30 now. Blue page 30. Everybody's there? Blue page 30? In the blue, page 30. Okay, Megan, could you read?
Sure. Objective. In this lesson, we identify qualities, quantities. We also work with concepts.
Okay, Marcy.
You create one possibility question other than
okay, so here's some information. You're going to each come up with a question in your groups. You don't need to know the answer to the question, and some sample questions. How tall is Superman? How much does Natalie's Math Finder weigh? We just need a question where the answer is a number, but I don't want that number to be a date or a year or a time, okay? So just write down a question on your own. If you can't think of one, look at your neighbor and copy their question. Just go ahead and write down a question, and then we'll come back together. Let's come back together. It's okay if we haven't come up with a question just yet, but we'll get enough up here that we have a variety. Here's the goal. The goal, again, is not to know the answer to these questions you just made up. The goal is to figure out precisely what is being asked. We want to use very careful mathematical language to determine exactly what the question is asking us for. So for the how tall is Superman question, the answer is going to be Superman's height in inches. Yes? I don't care about the number, but whatever the number is, it is Superman's height in inches. How much does Natalie's binder weigh? The weight of Natalie's backpack in pounds. That's what we are trying to measure or count. Okay, so let's get maybe 3 or 4 people to just shout out their question. Go ahead. How many pairs of socks do you own? All right, so we're going to translate that into what is the answer going to be? And it's going to be the number of pairs of socks. Right. Number of pairs of socks. Okay, somebody else with a question? Yes. How many feet from parking lot D to this classroom? And so what's the answer going to be? Number of feet, right? It's the number of feet.
There's a sign that says it's on the corner, but I think I heard it wrong. She still got it. Oh, there's a sign there now. This is why I walk up here.
What just happened? I don't understand what just happened. All right, let's get it. Let's get. All right, let's get back to this. Okay, another question. Yes. How many swallows would it take to what? To carry swallows birds, you mean? Yeah. Oh yeah, okay, so how many birds would it take to carry a coconut?
Not being African or European swallow.
Okay. All right, so the number of birds, right? That's what we'd be counting. That's the answer. It's going to be some number of birds. Good. Okay, one more. Geneva.
How much does that weigh?
How much does? How much does Heather weigh? Now we're getting personal here. Okay, so then here what we would do the weight of Heather in pounds. We could also do ounces, right? That's a choice, right? I mean, pounds is not the only way to measure weight. In fact, pounds is not the way that most of the world measures weight. What does most of the world use? It's kilograms, right? You go just about anywhere outside of the U.S. and they're going to say pounds. I don't know what that is. Kilograms. Yeah, with good reason. Okay, so here's the goal. The goal is to think about these two words up here Megan read to us. The two words that we're focusing on right now are quantities and units. So we're going to define them in a second. But what we want to do is try to circle the appropriate words in these examples. So you don't need to write this down, but I'll say a definition for the word quantity. A quantity is something which can be counted or measured. A quantity is something which can be counted or measured. So if we come up here and we look at Superman's height in inches, what is the thing that we are counting or measuring in that phrase? Inches is not the thing we are counting or measuring. The height is the thing that we are counting or measuring. The inches is the thing that you use to describe, you know, how tall Superman is, but it's not really what you're counting. You are measuring the height. So what we're going to do is follow these directions down here. It says we're going to circle the quantity words. Circle the quantity words. So coming back up here, the thing that we are measuring or counting is Superman's height. That is a quantity. Anything you can measure or count is a quantity. Okay, and the weight of Natalie's backpack in pounds. What are we measuring or counting? Is weight. That is a quantity word. Okay, so looking at this next example, what was the question? This was your question, right, Megan?
Oh, yeah, number. Or
How many pairs of socks do you own? Okay, so the number of pairs of socks. All right. Yeah, what is it that we're counting? We're counting pairs of socks. That's right. Counting pairs of socks. Mm-hmm. If you circled pairs, that would be fine. Yeah. What was the next question? Oh, it was the number of feet between here and the parking lot or something like that? So what is it that we're counting in this case? We are. I feel like I'm messing this up again. So this is my second time teaching this course. I taught it last fall, and I have distinct recollections of when I asked students to come up with questions, and I wrote the questions, but I didn't write them carefully enough, and I'd completely messed it up. And I said to myself, you're not going to do that again this semester. I'm going to learn from my mistake. And I'm pretty sure I've done it again up here. That's what Montserrat said, right? You gotta hear something a few times. So I'm going to get this. Let's go down to the weight of Heather in pounds. What's the thing that we are counting or measuring there? We're not measuring pounds. What is the thing that we are counting? We are counting weight, or we are measuring weight. When you hop on the scale, you're not measuring your pounds, you're measuring your weight. So weight is a quantity word. Okay, so I think I got this now. And I think what I did is I messed up there when we said pairs of socks. The thing that we were counting was a number. Feet is not the thing that we are counting. We are counting, like literally when we count numbers, right? So if I'm counting the number of pairs of socks, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm counting a number out. And I'm counting a number out, and I'm counting a number out. And here we are measuring, not counting per se, but we're measuring weight. And so those are the quantity words. I'm going to add one example here down at the bottom. I'm going to say the volume of this room in, what would be a good kind of unit that we could measure the volume, the amount of space in this room? Cubic feet is good. Did I hear something else? So cubic feet is fine. What did we say in the back there? Could do meters, plane meters. It's volume, so it'd be cubic meters. That's what I want to get after here. Could we do square feet for the volume of this room? No, we can't. We got to make sure that the dimensions match up. This is a volume, and volume involves cubic things. What word would describe a square footage like this board here? Area, right? You can measure area, which is a two-dimensional thing, in square feet. 2 is square. Okay, and so what is it that we would be counting or measuring? We would be counting or measuring the volume in this case. So that is our quantity word. Okay, so those are all quantity words, and I promise you'll get lots of practice circling them in a minute. And the other keyword for today is unit. A unit is sort of a standard measurement. It's a measurement that we can all agree, like if I said, how long is a foot? We all know a foot is about yay long. And if I said, you know, what's a pound? You all know roughly what a pound is. It's just it's something that's defined as a standard so that we can compare other things to that. What does it mean to say I'm 6 feet tall? It means I'm 6 times as long as what we all agree to be the standard definition of 1 foot, right? Okay, I'm like 5'11" on a good day, but say 6. Okay, so those are units that we're interested in. So let's go back up to Superman. And what we're going to do here is underline units. Again, the unit is the thing that is the standard. That's how you actually end up counting out or measuring something. Superman's height in inches. What's the standard in there? It's inches. We all know what an inch is. We're just going to count how many inches to get Superman's height. The weight of Natalie's backpack in pounds is pounds. We all agree what a pound is. And then we're going to measure the backpack's weight in pounds. Okay, the next one is the one that I messed up. The number of pairs of socks. This one, it's not as easy because we all have a sense, all right, inches, pounds, feet, miles, gallons. We all know what these kind of standard units are, but there's a non-standard unit in this example. And before we underline it, let me just say, a really easy check to find out whether or not you have found a unit is that if you put a number in front of it, it makes sense. If you put a number in front of it, the unit makes sense. Yeah, 5 pairs of socks makes sense, right? Does 5 number make sense? No. How about 5 height? No. How about 5 inches? You see the difference? Right? One of them is what is that? 5 socks is fine. She said pairs in her example. So the whole thing, 5 pairs of socks. If you just underline pairs, that would be okay. Going back up to Natalie, 5 weight. Does that make sense? No? 5 pounds? Yes. And so it's a really easy test, right? If you can put a number in front of it and it makes sense, we probably found a unit. Okay, in this next example, number of feet, what's the standard unit in that example? Feet. In the next one, what is it that we what is it we can count here in this example? Is birds. 5 birds makes sense. Okay, the weight of Heather in pounds, what's the unit there? Pounds. If we had done weight in ounces, ounces. And then finally, volume of this room in cubic feet. Cubic feet. 100 cubic feet, that's a phrase that has meaning. All right, so if we go on to the next page, there's some notes that you can look at for later reference. It basically says what we talked about. Definition of quantity and unit are all written out. There's a bunch of examples of quantity words. You can see that the word number, which we included several times, is in there. It's a quantity word, so that's going to get circled every time. Here's the business about testing whether a word is a unit by putting a number in front of it. That's written out for you. You can check it out later. And then there's a really short discussion about area involving a number of squares and being two-dimensional, and then units for area being square inches or square feet, or square yards or square centimeters, right? Square something. Area is always a square something. And then volume is the number of cubes that fit into a space, three-dimensional space. And then possible units would be cubic inches, cubic feet, cubic something, okay? Areas and volumes. All right, on the next page, classwork begins. See how far you can get. We will call you back together in just a few minutes. Okay, one quick thing before we move on to the next page. just in terms of getting used to writing the phrases that you're going to need to write on this coming quiz and then the test after that. If I want a quantity, this is in number 4 with Laura and bicycling. So you can do energy in calories. And then the other quantity in this problem is time. Time in, and then we make something up. Minutes or hours both seem natural. Okay, so I'm just looking for a phrase. Oftentimes it's only 3 words. And every time it's got the word in the middle. So it's pretty standard. And then also get in the habit of circling the quantity words. So what was the quantity word in energy and calories? Energy. What about in time and minutes? It's time. And then we're underlining the units. We were measuring things in calories and in minutes. Okay. All right. On the next page, changing gears, looking at positive exponents and roots. All right, there are 4 problems right up here. I'm assuming that at least the first 3 of them you've seen before, and you may or may not have seen this last one. So we're going to go through this very quickly because I think you've seen it before. Can somebody read to me, how do we say this symbol here, these numbers?
4 squared.
4 squared. So I'm just going to write that. 4 squared, if we wanted to say this thing out loud. There's another way to say that thing out loud. 4 to the 2nd power. 4 to the 2nd power, that's great. And what does it mean? And don't give me the final answer, but if you were explaining what 4 squared meant to somebody, you would say just multiply 4 times itself. Why? How do we know we should just do 4 times itself? This is 2 of them. That 2 tells you how many 4s you should put down there. Okay, so the answer is 16, no big deal. How would we say this next one?
4 cubed.
We'd say 4 cubed. Or 4 to the 3rd power. Squared and cubed they come up often enough that we just give them their own special names, but once we get up to the 4th power, we don't really have any way to say it other than to the 4th power. Okay, so what does it mean here? We're going to do what? 4 times 4 times 4. 3 copies of that number that's at the bottom. So in this case, it's 64. Good? Okay, how would we say part C is a square root of 16? And instead of thinking, so this is a different symbol that's basically the opposite of the first symbol we saw on part A. It's not saying do 16 times 16 and tell me the answer. It's saying whatever the answer is, if you do the answer times itself, you'll get back up to 16. So what's the answer in this case? It's 4. It's the number that when you multiply it by itself, you get 16. So it's kind of thinking backwards from part A. And then part D, I'll write out, anybody know how to say this? Is the good cube root of 64. Cube root of 64. And we're looking for a number that when you do that number times itself a 3rd time, you build up to 64. And that number is 4. In fact, that's what we saw in part B. So this one is just undoing part B. So that last one is maybe the only one that's new for us. Everybody understand what that cube root symbol means? The answer is 4 because 4 times 4 times 4, 3 of them gets you back up to the 64. Okay, so some notes you can read later on about positive exponents and roots. For right now, see if you can work through the rest of this page starting at number 6. Okay, coming back together. It's okay if you didn't quite finish all of these. I think some people were working on the quick check, and that's fine too. Just in the interest of saving some time, we're going to not spend our class time today working on this quick check. We'll take a look at it later. It's a review of some of the decimal arithmetic from last time, as well as some more practice with negative numbers. But we move on, because like I mentioned, today we're supposed to cover 2 different kinds of things, 2 different topics. So let's move on to page 38. 38. Yes, Megan. Which one? 7. Let's take a look. All right, let's take a look at 7. Can we do the first one? Okay. All right, so we are looking for the fourth root of 573 to the fourth power, and most quizzes and tests are going to be non-calculator, including this kind of a question. This is fair game. So let's see. What if I gave you something simpler first? I'm going to ask for the square root, and I know square root you don't have to write the 2, but I'm just going to put it there. So what if I said something like the square root of like 9 squared? So this is asking for the square root of, what is 9 squared? 9 squared is 81. 9 times 9, 81. And what is the square root of 81? Is 9. And so in a very real way, we started this problem with a 9. Then we squared it, and then we square rooted it, but we ended up right back where we started because we undid exactly what we did first. And so that's what's happening here in this example. You're going to take 573, raise it to the fourth power and get some enormous number, but then you're just going to bring it right back to 573 by taking the fourth root.
It's actually pretty simple. It's just they made the numbers really big to make it look.
Yeah, and so, yeah. That's it. That's it. If that guy matches that guy right up there, and the answer is just whatever that other number is. Good question. Okay, so jumping back to, I think we're on page 38. So everybody on page 38, and we'll start with this objective here at the top. Tyler, can you read the objective, please?
Yes. In this lesson, we know the difference between expressions and equations. We then define variables using quantity words and appropriate units, and create expressions for phases that might later appear in application. Application problem.
Thank you. Okay, so I know that a lot of people in math class hate word problems. They say that they are never good at them and they never can be good at them. And I think that what we're going to do the rest of today is the first step in making those word problems accessible, making them tackleable, if that's a word. So first, a couple of definitions. Can we go over to Leslie for the first bullet? Okay, thank you. John, next bullet. Okay, and then Brandy. Okay, so this first column here has expressions and the second column has equations. What symbol do you see in every one in the second column? Is an equal sign. And in fact, the word equals and equations both share that beginning part, and that's no coincidence, right? If you see an equal sign, you are looking at an equation. If you don't see an equal sign, you are looking at an expression. That's it. It can't be any more straightforward to decide which one is which. You still have to memorize like the vocabulary there, but to decide which one is which, as soon as you know what you're doing, it's immediately obvious whether you're looking at an expression or an equation. Equations have equal signs, expressions do not. Okay, so let's go down to this last bullet. We'll go to Julia. Okay, so let's see if we can start working with some of this other vocabulary here in number 1. It says evaluate 2 plus x over 3 plus x when x equals 5. So let me circle this thing right here. Is that an expression or an equation? It's an expression. Now, if I gave you something like this, we will see this soon enough. 2 plus x equals 5. Is that an expression or an equation? It's an equation. And I'm sure most of you know how to solve that equation. What's the answer? Give me a more complete version of the answer than just 3. X equals 3, right? That's the solution. That's the answer. You can solve equations. The solution here is x equals 3. You cannot solve an expression. It doesn't make any sense to look at 2 plus x over 3 plus x and ask yourself, okay, how much is x? It's not an equation. It doesn't make sense to even ask the question. But one thing we can do with expressions is we can evaluate them, which basically just means plug in. We're going to be given this x equals 5, some specific value of the variable, and we're going to plug it in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy everything about this expression except for the x's. I just leave blanks there. And according to this, I'm supposed to evaluate when x is 5. So all of the blanks become 5s. That's it. I'll just put 5 here, 5 here. I'm going to put in something that is unnecessary, but sometimes it will be necessary, and that's to put the value right there in parentheses. It's redundant in this case. We don't need it, but sometimes we do. And so I'm just going to put it every time to be safe. And then we just do some arithmetic and we're done. So upstairs is 7, downstairs is 8, we're done. Number 2, create an expression for the sum of x and 5. Okay, what operation does the word sum tell you? Addition. And then addition has 2, I think they're called add-ins, the 2 things that you're adding up. And what are they? X and 5. Done. Does it make sense to solve that for x? No, it's not an equation. The goal is not to find what x is equal to. It's just an expression. Okay, and then finally down here 3. Define a variable and create an expression for the phrase $6 less than the price of a movie ticket. $6 less than the price of a movie ticket. Okay, so I'm going to start this one. $6, okay. 6. Less than is one of the operations. It's addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. It's subtraction. It's less than. Okay, here are your 2 choices. It's either 6 minus or something minus 6. This is something minus 6 because it's $6 less than something else. Okay, so now we whittled it down to here. What is it $6 less than? It's $6 less than the price of a movie ticket, which I don't know what the price of a movie ticket is, and it says define a variable, so I feel like this is the moment where I'm being asked to define a variable. So we're going to pick a letter to represent the price of a movie ticket. What letter do you want to pick?
T for ticket.
T is fine, X is fine. I'm going to use P for price, but you can use any letter you want. But I'm not just going to put a P down here, because if I put that, it's meaningless. Nobody looking at that is going to understand what you're representing because you haven't told them what P stands for. So we're going to be very specific, very precise, very detailed. We're going to say let P equal the price of a ticket. But even that's not enough because we said $6 less than the ticket, right? Less than the price of the ticket. What if I wanted to measure the price of the ticket in yen? Would this P minus 6 be an appropriate thing to do? I had like, it's 1,000 yen and then you subtract $6. Does that make sense? No, we can't mix and match. So we got to specify what's missing. Is it a quantity or unit that we're missing? We are missing a unit. So let's specify a unit. What's the natural unit for the price? Is dollars. Price of a ticket in dollars. And remember, I mentioned that word in is going to appear over and over again. Right after the word in is our unit. That's where it goes. Okay, and then it says circle the quantity word. What is the thing that we are measuring or counting in that phrase? It's price. Price. And then it says underline the unit is dollars. That's the thing that is the standard unit for us. Yes, it's gonna, but I'll be very specific. I'm gonna say circle the quantity word and underline units, and if you don't have anything to underline, it means you're missing something. Yeah, but I'll be very clear on the test and quiz questions. Okay, any questions on that one? Okay, so on the next page, some notes for your later reference. You can check them out. But for right now, see how far you can get in the classwork. We've got about 17 minutes. Let's see if we can work through all the classwork with your neighbors.